looking at the beauty of the trees here at central Michigan as the fall changes and the colors are just gorgeous. Kind of reminds me of the excitement when I first started studying photography. Let me tell you about that for just a moment. When I started getting excited about doing photography, I think I just kind of went overboard. I started by taking Spoon River College photography classes, some of the night classes. I didn't take one or two, I took every class they offered, and I didn't take it one time. I took every class probably 3 or 4 times because I just wanted to sit in and keep remembering. And when I was done with that, I went online and I started taking some specialized online photography classes. And then, of course, I read magazines and I got YouTube and watched everything YouTube did. And I ended up getting a whole studio and a green screen and doing all photography stuff and lighting and just all sorts of stuff to do it. And, well, I won't bore you with, the process I was going through. I don't know how many thousands of pictures. I think I averaged taking about, tripping my trigger about 25,000 times per year. So I even went to bed with the camera. Seriously, in the dark next to the stand and fumbled with the controls to see if I could do them in the dark because I wanted to do night photography. Well, to make an extremely long, boring story, at least a little bit shorter, I'll say that one day I grabbed my camera and I just realized that I could do anything with that camera that I wanted to do. Any kind of picture that I had seen in a magazine or any picture I could think of or anything that the camera was capable of doing, I could do with that camera. And when that day happened, there was it was no longer an urge to learn everything new about it. Rather, the question was, what am I going to choose to do? You see, I knew my camera, but I didn't know me. I was kind of confused with what I wanted to do with my camera. And then one day, I went back through all of my gallery and all of the thousands of pictures that I had taken, and I just checked out. I didn't look for good ones. I didn't look for popular ones. I didn't look for any pictures that won an award. I didn't look for anything like that. I just looked through the pictures to pick what my personal favorites were. Whether they were good or crummy, it didn't matter to anybody else. What were my favorites? And then I narrowed that down to about 12 pictures, I think is what I had, that were my favorites. And then I took those 12 pictures and became obnoxious with everybody I knew. I grabbed my wife, I grabbed my kids, I grabbed people around me, and I said, hey, I just want you to try something, experiment. Take these 12 pictures, look at them carefully, and tell me what all 12 had in common. That was a helpful exercise because what I couldn't see about myself, they could see. So they would come back and over again, they would say, well, I see these 2 or 3 things in common to all those pictures. This picture's got this and this and this. And when I was finished with that, I had an idea what I wanted to do with my camera, who I was, and what my photography was all about. And from that time, probably clearing down to now, I've begun to, I know what I'm doing when I'm shooting. I know what I'm shooting for. I know what I'm looking for. I know what's my photography. And it's not a matter of good or bad. It's just a matter of my style, who I am. Now, of course, this short midweek devotion really isn't about photography. That's just an analogy I'm using for the point. What it's about is knowing ourselves and stepping away from the pack and not being a copycat. Because you see, I think what I do or did with the camera is what a lot of people do with their Christian faith, their religion. They learn from their parents, they learn from the church they grew up in, they learn what areas to emphasize, they learn what areas not to question, they learn who not to ask questions to. They learn this kind of a cookie cutter type of faith that isn't really all them. And they may be very good at it. They may have learned their lessons well, and they may have just fit right in, but down deep inside, it may be something about the devotional patterns they have, or it may be something about the theology that they wrestle with and the questions they ask themselves when they know it's not safe to ask others, their view of God. There may be stuff about them that is different from what they've been trained. This is what Christianity is. Now, I never really threw away the rules of composition. I never really threw away the rules of what it takes to look at light and to recognize good light from poor light. But what happened was I found me in there. And to be honest, I don't always follow all of the rules of photography. And my pictures aren't always that good. And sometimes I chuckle to myself that they probably were better pictures back in the days I was copying other people's pictures than when I make my own. That's probably true of the Christian faith. Sometimes we fit a little better when we're trying to copy everybody around us and be part of the pack than we do when we are being us. But Christianity, it's a relationship, and it's an entire life, and it's something that should be practiced in a community, of course, but also individually. My faith is still in process. It's been growing since the day I became a Christian back on July 8th, 1974. And today it's still growing, and it's still stretching, and it's still challenging me, and it's still teaching me new things about myself. And to be honest, I don't agree with every idea that came from the denomination I grew up in. Although I'm an ordained minister in that denomination, and although I feel very much at home, and that is my spiritual home community, I don't always agree with everything, nor do I have everything nailed down. And I wrestle with ideas that are challenging for me, and maybe with others too. And that's because it's a process of growth. Just like I grow in every other area, my faith grows also, and that's okay. There are some theologians that I like to read, and some of the ones I like to read are really messy. Now, some theologians, by the time they get to be 20 years old, they have their theology nailed down, and it's never going to change, and they're rigid and structured, and everything fits in a little box just neatly, and a lot of people follow them. I tend to follow the ones that over 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years or more, their theology keeps evolving and growing and changing, and they're a little messy to read because what they write when they're in their 20s is not what they write when they're in their 80s. But they are growing in the process. We have a day or two left this week. Not as much as usual. I'm a little bit late with this video, and that's because I got stuck in this huge traffic jam in Chicago. It took me forever to get through it, and put me a day behind on my travels up here to Michigan. So normally this video would have been yesterday, but it's coming out a day late. But we still have some time between now and the time we come back to worship together again on Sunday. During that time, may God stretch you. May God grow your faith. May God challenge you. May His presence become more and more real in your life so that the Christian you are tomorrow is deeper, more mature, and more you than the Christian you were yesterday. God bless you.